Quarrelsome to quiet. And I'm here with Pamela, and we're going to have a ball with this one, I can tell. Inshallah. Welcome, Pamela. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
So, Quarrelsome.
Mm-hmm.
What does Quarrelsome look like?
Oh, busy mind. Very, very busy mind. Like just a lot of chatter and there's like all of these thoughts of like injustice, and they can't do that, and they can't say that, and they can't do that to me, and all of this just mess.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel that you have to speak it. You just can't. You can't hold it in. You have to. It just sort of spills out.
And I think that most of the time in those, if you could call them conversations, but they really aren't, most of the time you're just thinking about what you're going to say next, not what they're saying at all. It's like, how am I going to get my point across? How I'm going to argue this? And it's like that's all that's on your mind, and you can't even hear a word what they're really saying, right?
That's it. You're not even listening to what they're saying because you're just thinking about what's my next argument, what's my next counter argument, what's my next argument.
Yeah.
You're not even present.
Yeah. In fact, if you are listening, it's for what you can pick on them for, and it's like you hear this, see,
exactly. Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. See, you're just proving my point.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how does that work in terms of relationships?
Oh, it destroys them, doesn't it?
It doesn't work,
because it's like, it's that I'm right, even when I'm wrong, I'm right. It's very difficult to be around a person like that thinks they know everything, has something to say about everything, and sort of nitpicks. Well, that's how I was anyway.
Yeah, so you're describing it. That's interesting because you're describing it from the perspective of the person that's experiencing you, right?
Now, yes. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what the beauty of this understanding gives you, because you're able to, sort of turn the flashlight inside and actually have a look at yourself, and see how is someone experiencing me in this moment. And well, it's almost like, we're able to look at it objectively. We're able to remove ourselves and sort of almost come up and look at the argument and go, oh my goodness, right? They didn't have a chance. They couldn't get a word in. I wasn't listening. They had absolutely no chance. Yeah,
it's really good to be able to be reflective like that. I think what's also interesting to unpack is it looks like when someone's quarrelsome that they think they're right? But that's not really what's happening, is it? What's really happening when you're in a quarrelsome state?
What's really happening when you're in a quarrelsome state? I don't know. You tell me.
I got you with that one. Okay. Well, what I was thinking is it's not about being right, really. It's about not feeling seen and heard yourself, and wanting to be seen and heard.
Absolutely. We're like a little toddler.
Yeah.
In that moment we are, we just, revert back to that sort of toddler of, you're not listening. You're not hearing what I'm saying. I'm not being seen. Yeah. And we're just chucking a little tantrum.
Yeah, going to keep escalating it until you get my point.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's helpful to understand, because if you're dealing with someone who's quarrelsome and it seems like they think they're right, is to actually understand that that's not what it's about. Because if we think that way, then we're trying to argue back that, maybe we have a point too. You're not always right. A battle of the egos. understanding that, that somebody is really perhaps feeling not heard or not seen, and that's behind it, can be really quite powerful. And that can be the shift in thinking that leads from a, quarrelsome situation to a quiet situation. And the quiet being able to be quiet and listen and hear where someone is coming from. So you can do that now, right, Pamela? Like, it doesn't feel like you have to
Yeah,
answer back anymore.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, once you're
Ev-
able to see that, because it all of a sudden, it sort of just becomes very clear, sort of organically all by itself. You just sort of see, oh wow, right. They're not feeling heard. They're not feeling seen. Okay.
Mm,
Right. So you just take a step back, and then even though I still have that urgency or that impulse to still, I'm right, put my point across. And I'm like, oh no, I'm just going to relax into that
mm,
and just listen, give them and we change the way we then, ask the question or whatever. Okay. So just tell me that again, because obviously I'm not hearing you correctly.
mm,
Or even, having that empathy and compassion for them, you're able to then go, okay, I can see parts of it, but please help me understand X, Y, and Z. So it gives you so much more compassion and empathy
mm.
for people. Yeah.
And I
And for
think
yourself.
one of the key differences between being in a quarrelsome state and a quiet state in relationships is taking things personally, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that one still catches me, obviously.
Oh, well, it catches
Um,
everybody sometimes. That's we're not aiming for perfection here.
that's
We're just
it.
aiming for understanding and a better better result.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, even though I said it still catches me now, and of course it's just part of our human experience, isn't it? That these things happen. But I have so much more compassion for myself when I am caught up in it.
Mm.
Um, what was the rest of part of your question?
Or
You
just about it not taking it
not
personally.
taking it personally. Yeah, that was a big one for me, because it was always a personal attack,
Mm,
always.
mm,
Um, and it's like either attack on my character, or they're judging me, or they're um just whatever. It was always something wrong with me.
mm.
They're yeah.
And so then the defensiveness kicks in, and that's where the quarrelsomeness kicks in too, because when you get defensive, it's like you've got to prove them wrong or you've got to answer back
That's it,
constantly.
because when you're taking it personally, you feel like you're backed into a corner. And
Mm,
when you're feeling backed into a corner and feeling attacked, then the defense is to attack back.
mm,
And crazy stuff just comes out. Stuff that you don't mean, stuff that it's just completely the picture is just completely muddled in your mind, because you're
mm,
just so you just become so pinpoint and focused that they're talking about me.
mm.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
reality is, as we just unpacked, is that they just might not be feeling heard or understood. And if we're quiet, they'll move past that feeling and we actually start getting to where a conversation can happen. Where, I mean, I would define a conversation is where each person is listening to the other person and then responding properly to what has just been said, in a genuine way. Whereas what I think a lot of our conversations in relationships are more about is getting our point across or being heard or being understood. And it's coming from believing we need something out of the conversation rather than it being about a sharing of information with one another from a beautiful space.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It becomes a waltz that you're doing with each other rather than one person trying to do the tango and the other person trying to do the merengue, right? It's just like you're just not kind of getting there, but there just it becomes a bit of a to and fro smooth flowing dance, the conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. A conversation is a waltz, and everything else is where you're trying to do two different dances at the same time, which
Yeah.
doesn't work very well.
No.
Treading on each other's toes, right?
Toes, egos, whatever.
Yes, it's probably more treading on the egos. SubhanAllah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this works in all relationships, really, even with our children, because we end up in power struggles with our children in exactly the same way.
Absolutely.
Because we can be as quarrelsome with them as they can be with us, but us being able to be quiet, we can hear what's going on with them and often turn things around. So it's fitting for every relationship, no matter which relationship, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's perfect. It's perfect in parenting. And that's where the real teaching of this, I think, comes through is when you actually then start using, well, not using, but when this becomes apparent when you're dealing with your children. Because again, it's the same thing. They're not feeling heard. They're not feeling seen. You're not, I've got big feelings at the moment, and you're trying to not allow me to have these big feelings. So it's, often it's just, okay, I'll give you space for you to be able to figure out those big feelings yourself. Not even figure it. They just happen organically, doesn't it? You don't know. We're not really doing anything.
Yeah.
But it's just so beautiful, particularly. I mean, that's the biggest thing, I think, with the peaceful parenting program, that you deliver it back to the Fitrah is that holding space for the kids and listening. So less talking, more listening.
Yeah. So instead of quarreling, we're being quiet. And when we say being quiet, some people might interpret that to mean like allowing people to walk all over us and say whatever, but that's not what we're talking about. You actually used the language, I think that's a beautiful way of expressing it, is holding space for the person to come back to their senses, that understanding that if they're being quarrelsome, that there's something going on for them, that's not their natural state or their best state, and being able to hold that space, let them say what they need to say without taking it personally, and quietly notice what might be going on for them. And then in a way we can show up differently, and in fact that whole quarrelsomeness can fall away, and a proper conversation can be had. But it works both sides of the fence, right? So we're talking about it now from the side of dealing with someone who's quarrelsome. The other thing is understanding our own selves when we've got into that mood, and we can tell that we're feeling not heard, and so we're trying to answer back to everything. And being mindful of what do we do in that situation. So it really isn't about doing anything, is it, Pamela? So how, if
just having tawakkul, right? Having this trust in Allah, and so you notice that you're getting frustrated, and you can feel it. I mean, you can always feel it in your body when you're like getting tense, because it's the tension. Or for me, it's tension in my shoulders. I start to go like this, and I can really feel it. So I'm like, okay, I'll just bring those down, and then I'll just often just make dua in that moment, and it just sort of gives you this relaxing sort of feeling. And just I mean, again, it doesn't work all the time because we don't quite catch ourselves in time,
Yeah.
and then we stumble, and
Mm.
then go, oh, okay, oops, stumbled.
Mm.
And that's the beautiful thing too, is that again, that self-compassion, we do, oh, oops, I stumbled again, rather than,
Mm.
then having all that other mind chatter about that you did it wrong and you're never going to get it, and et cetera,
Yeah.
because that's it, you're quarrelsome with yourself.
Yeah. Actually, that's even worse, isn't it, when we're having quarrels in our own head?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that doesn't help, because then someone will come in with something that that they're going through, and then we just sort of snap because the quarrel's already there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess
But
what we're saying to people is it's going to be inevitable sometimes that relationships are going to get into that quarrelsome state.
yeah,
And that sometimes we'll accidentally fall into it with somebody, and that our job is not to give ourselves a hard time and not to give them a hard time,
yeah,
but to actually go notice and pause and be reflective and aware that at the moment I'm not in my high level thinking,
mm-hmm.
and I can do a lot of damage if I say too much when I'm in this state, or if I try to do something that's important or make a decision while I'm in this state. And so let's just pause. Let's just give it a moment, and inshallah, the quiet will come back in our minds, and the quiet space will come back in the conversation, where something really constructive can come out of it rather than destructive. I really think between quarrelsome and quiet, it's destructive versus constructive, isn't it, in terms of
Yeah,
relationships? It's really can be that simple.
absolutely. Yeah,
And I think the other thing to realize for ourselves and for others is sometimes when we're in that state, you just can't see a way out. So that is about being compassionate towards ourselves when we muck up in that way, but it's also about being compassionate to the person that's being quarrelsome with us, and realize at this moment they can't see a way out.
yeah.
They're not trying to make our life miserable, although that thought could be on their mind because they might be hurting and there's like trying to hurt back. We've had some
Well, yeah, well,
conversations
that's
like that.
exactly it. Well, that's you
But
you
that's
can't
not
see
their
past that.
yeah, that's not their high level thinking. They're stuck in their low level
Yeah.
thinking. And so
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to take that seriously, because when we take that seriously, then we're jumping into low level thinking with them.
Yeah. We want to take it seriously in the sense of having compassion for them, but not
Mm,
take it seriously as in taking it personally.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So we have a term it back to the Fitrah when someone's doing that. We call it they're having an emotional vomit. Very attractive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just this is going to sound really, really, really gross, right? Okay. So when somebody is actually really sick, the last thing you're going to do is eat it up, are you? You're going to clean them up.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's the same for emotional vomit. We don't want to eat it up. We want to clean it up.
That's it. That's it. You don't want to eat it.
I
You don't
know
want to
that was a
wear it. You
really,
don't want
really
yeah.
gross analogy, but maybe sometimes we need gross analogies to get it through our heads. That
That's it.
in this moment, arguing is not fruitful.
No.
In fact, I would argue that argument most of the time isn't fruitful.
I mean, we've got to, come back to, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I mean, again, I get goosebumps every time I talk about him, because it's just like the character is just
Mm,
amazing, like the amount of hadiths and narrations that are about where he could have been very quarrelsome, and
mm,
yet he just had nothing but love and compassion for the person who he was receiving this from. And that's a great reminder for me. It's just like, sometimes with that pause, it's just like, what would the prophet do in this moment? And then you're reminded of the a narration or a hadith, and then that also gives that extended place for pause, and allows you to then come back to your high level thinking.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So definitely this understanding helps in relationships, which is why, during Ramadan, we've got a special offer to help people join, because I think this is the time of year that we are trying to do better in things, and doing better in our relationships is one of the areas that we might be focusing on. And so we've got a very special offer to invite people to join the Back to the Fitrah Inner Circle, where they can save $200, get about 40% off. So 40% off, it's pretty amazing. So for lifetime access, it's only $290 to join the Back to the Fitrah Inner Circle, where you can be educated in this understanding that we're talking about, but also be supported in it for as long as you need and want to be. You don't have to ever leave. And
we don't ever leave. We want more. It's so exciting. The programs they just build on top of each other, and it's just amazing.
So I guess if anyone out there is struggling with quarrelsome relationships and would really like to be able to hold that space in that moment for that to become a conversation rather than an argument, then definitely check out the Inner Circle at backtothefitra.online and see if this is for you. Praise Takara, and it's an easy decision, really, because you've got 30 days in there to decide if you want to stay, and you'll get your money back if you decide in that 30 days, well, no, this isn't going to be what is helpful for me. So now's the time to jump in. It's $490 or $49 a month after Ramadan. That's our usual pricing. Just during Ramadan, it's $290 or $29 a month. So
Mashallah.
Easy decision to make, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Pamela. It's always fun. And tomorrow, inshallah, is we've got we're Q. R is the next letter. What are we doing for R? Let me share with everybody so they can see what we're doing next. R is resentful to relieved with Romy.
Wow. Rah, rah, rah.
Yeah, rah. Don't you love it when it all comes together like that?
That's a good one. And it was not even planned, which is great. Yeah.
Yes, Romy just volunteered for that one. So, alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, Pamela. Great to have you here. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.